Welcome to Healthy Kidneys After 60. I am your host, Jane Pauley. We spend so much of our lives thinking we are doing the right things for our bodies, especially when it comes to the simple acts like pouring a glass of milk in the morning. We have been told for decades that milk is the ultimate insurance policy for our bones. But as we cross the threshold of 60, 70, or 80, the rules of the game change. Is it possible that the very drink you trust is actually working against you? Today, we are joined by a man who has spent his career translating complex medicine into hope, CNN's chief medical correspondent and neurosurgeon, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, it is so good to have you here to help us navigate these kitchen table decisions that mean so much for our independence.
It is a pleasure to be here, Jane. I often tell my patients that the most powerful tool we have isn't always a scalpel or a high-tech scan. It is often what we choose to put in our shopping carts. For those of us over 60, the margin for error gets smaller, and that morning glass of milk can indeed be a double-edged sword. I am looking forward to peeling back the labels with you today.
Sanjay, I was thinking about my own routine this morning, and I suspect many of our listeners are doing the same. There is a sense of comfort in a cold glass of milk or a splash of cream in our coffee. We have been raised with the idea that milk equals strength, a sort of biological armor against the frailty we all fear as we age. But lately, I have been hearing from so many of our viewers who say they are doing everything by the book, they are drinking their milk, they are taking their walks, and yet they wake up with joints that feel like rusted hinges or a fog in their mind that just won't lift. It makes me wonder, are we perhaps clinging to a nutritional habit that worked for us at 30 but is failing us at 70? Why is it that as we get older, even the things we consider healthy can suddenly start to feel like a burden on the system? Is there a biological clock ticking inside our metabolism that changes how we handle that simple glass of dairy?
That is such a profound way to put it, Jane, and it hits on a reality that many people find frustrating or even a bit scary. The truth is, our bodies after 60 are fundamentally different machines than they were in our youth. It is not just about wrinkles or gray hair, it is about what is happening at the cellular level. One of the biggest shifts is our insulin sensitivity. As we age, our cells become a bit more stubborn, a bit less responsive to the signals that tell them to take in sugar for energy. This means that anything with added sugar, even if it's hidden in a healthy-looking milk carton, hits the bloodstream with much more force. We also see an increase in what we call basal inflammation. Think of it like a low-grade fire smoldering in the background of your joints and your blood vessels. When we consume the wrong types of fats or high-dose sugars, we are essentially throwing gasoline on that fire. And then there is the gut. Our ability to absorb those vital nutrients like calcium and vitamin D actually declines. So if we aren't choosing the right delivery system, we might be drinking the calories, but missing the benefits entirely. This is why the American Heart Association is so adamant about limiting added sugars, because for someone over 60, that sugar isn't just extra calories. It is a direct contributor to cardiovascular strain and metabolic dysfunction that can lead to that exhaustion you mentioned.
It is almost like our bodies become more discerning or perhaps less forgiving. I think many of us feel that low-grade fire you described, but we just chalk it up to getting old. We tell ourselves that the stiffness or the afternoon slump is just the price of admission for another decade of life. But what I am hearing from you is that we might be inadvertently fueling that fire every time we open the refrigerator. It is a bit unsettling to think that the labels we trust, the ones that shout natural or high protein, might be masking ingredients that our 70-year-old bodies simply can't process anymore. Are we really at a point where we have to relearn how to eat, or rather, relearn how to drink something as basic as milk? It feels like there's a gap between what the marketing tells us and what our biology actually needs to stay standing and independent.
You have hit the nail on the head, Jane. The marketing is often 20 years behind the science of aging. We see these beautiful images of vitality on the packaging, but we don't see the fine print of what those ingredients do to a body that is trying to maintain its bone density and cognitive clarity. After 60, right truly becomes your best medicine and wrong becomes a slow-acting toxin. If we choose a milk that is loaded with hidden sugars or lacks the fortification our aging bones crave, we aren't just missing a meal, we are missing an opportunity to protect our independence. The stakes are high because a mistake in the kitchen can lead to a mistake on the stairs or a lapse in memory that changes everything. Today, I want to help everyone listening bridge that gap. We are going to identify the 3 specific types of milk that are likely causing that inflammation and brain fog you asked about, and more importantly, the 3 options that act like real fuel for your bones and your brain. We want to make sure that when you reach for that glass, it's actually helping you stay upright, active, and fully present in your own life for many years to come.
It is so easy to be seduced by the beautiful packaging we see in the health food aisle, especially those sleek cartons of almond milk with pictures of sun-drenched orchards. I often find myself playing the role of the concerned daughter or the diligent wife, wandering through the grocery store and thinking that if a label says plant-based or heart-healthy, I am making the ultimate choice for my loved ones. Many of our listeners tell me they have made the switch because they believe almond milk is lighter on the stomach and better for their aging bones than traditional dairy. But I have to ask you, Sanjay, are we being led down a garden path by these clever marketing campaigns? Is there a hidden danger lurking in that morning splash of nut milk that could actually be sabotaging the very health goals we are trying so hard to achieve as we get older?
You are touching on a very sophisticated trap, Jane, and it is one that even the most health-conscious people fall into every single day. I remember a specific case that really illustrates this, a gentleman named Mr. Robert Thompson, who is 72 years old and lives in Columbus, Ohio. Robert was a very disciplined man. He had already cut out the obvious culprits like cakes, cookies, and soda because he was worried about his rising blood sugar levels. Yet, despite his efforts, his lab results were still trending in a dangerous direction, and he felt constantly fatigued. When we sat down to look at his daily routine, the culprit was hiding in plain sight, 2 large glasses of vanilla almond milk every morning. Robert thought he was doing his body a favor, but that specific vanilla or sweetened version was delivering nearly 15 to 20 grams of sugar before he even left the house. For a 72-year-old body, that is a metabolic earthquake. After 60, sugar hits the bloodstream like a freight train because our insulin response isn't as agile as it once was. That sugar causes a spike followed by a crash, which explains why Robert felt so drained by noon. Moreover, that excess sugar triggers systemic inflammation, which Robert felt as a persistent nagging stiffness in his finger joints and knees every morning.
It sounds like a betrayal, doesn't it? To think that someone like Robert is trying so hard to be virtuous only to have his healthy choice be the very thing that is causing his joints to ache and his energy to plummet. It makes me wonder about the actual composition of these milks. If it isn't just pure crushed almonds and water, what exactly are we pouring into our cereal bowls? Why does a product that markets itself as a natural alternative need so much added sweetness and thickeners? And what is that doing to the delicate balance of an older person's internal chemistry?
That is the crucial question, Jane, because if you look closely at the ingredients, the actual nut content in many of these commercial almond milks is surprisingly low, sometimes as little as 2%. To make up for that lack of substance and to create a texture that mimics real milk, manufacturers add thickeners like carrageenan or gums, and of course a significant amount of cane sugar or syrup to make it palatable. In Robert's case, he was essentially drinking nut-flavored sugar water. When you are 20, your body might burn that off, but at 72, that sugar lingers. It attaches to proteins in the blood in a process called glycation, which can damage tissues and accelerate aging. I told Robert that the most important thing he could do was to start reading the label for one specific word, unsweetened. We have to treat that word like a safety signal. Once Robert switched to a truly unsweetened, fortified version, his afternoon energy stabilized, and that heavy feeling in his legs began to lift. It shows that we cannot let the word healthy on the front of the box override the cold, hard facts on the nutrition panel at the back.
We see it everywhere now, Sanjay, from the local coffee shop to the trendy brunch spots. Oat milk has become the absolute darling of the dairy-free world. It is creamy, it tastes delicious, and there is this prevailing sense that because it comes from oats, it must be the gold standard for heart health and fiber. I hear from so many seniors who have jumped on this trend thinking they are being modern and health savvy. But I have been hearing whispers of concern that for those of us in our 60s and 70s, this hero of the coffee shop might actually be a villain when it comes to our bone density. Is it true that this creamy trend could be leaving our skeletons vulnerable? And are we inadvertently trading our bone strength for a trendy flavor?
It is a classic case of a product being great for one thing but potentially disastrous for another if you aren't careful. The primary issue with many oat milks, particularly the unfortified ones or the artisan brands, is that they naturally lack the critical minerals that older adults desperately need. As we age, our requirement for calcium and vitamin D actually increases because our bones are constantly being remodeled, and the withdrawal of minerals often exceeds the deposit. If you are replacing cow's milk with unfortified oat milk, you are essentially removing the primary source of bone-building blocks from your diet. But there is a second, more hidden problem: phytic acid. Oats naturally contain phytates, which are compounds that can bind to minerals like calcium and magnesium in the digestive tract, essentially locking them up and preventing your body from absorbing them. So for a person over 60, you might be facing a double whammy. You are consuming a drink that is already low in calcium, and the compounds in that drink are making it even harder for your body to use whatever calcium you do manage to get from other foods.
That is a terrifying thought, that we could be locking away the very nutrients we need to prevent a hip fracture or a crumbling spine. It feels like a silent theft happening inside our own bodies. When we talk about these phytic acids and the lack of vitamin D, how quickly does this impact an older person? Is this something that happens over years, or could a daily habit of the wrong oat milk start to weaken our foundation in a matter of months? And for those who truly love the taste, is there a way to enjoy it without putting our independence at risk?
The impact can be more rapid than people realize because bone health is a daily balance. If the body doesn't get enough calcium from the diet to maintain blood levels, it simply harvests it from your bones. It's like a bank account that you only withdraw from. For a senior, this can lead to a measurable decrease in bone mineral density relatively quickly. The key is to be an informed consumer. If you must choose oat milk, you absolutely have to ensure it is the fortified version, meaning the manufacturer has manually added calcium and vitamin D back into the liquid. However, even then, I advise my patients not to let oat milk be their only or even their primary source of calcium. You need to supplement that with leafy greens, sardines, or other high calcium foods. We have to remember that just because something is trendy or vegan doesn't mean it has the structural integrity required to support a 70-year-old frame. Don't let a fashionable drink decide the price of your bones.
There is a specific kind of fear that settles into a household when an older family member falls. Even if it is just a slip on a rug or a stumble in the garden, it feels like a warning shot. We all know that for someone in their late 60s or 70s, a fall isn't just an accident. It can be the beginning of a long decline in independence. I often hear people say, "I'm just getting clumsy," or "it's just my age," but I suspect there is often a deeper nutritional reason why the body starts to lose its balance and its resilience. Are we sometimes making choices that we think are gentle or clean, but are actually leaving us brittle and prone to these life-changing accidents?
You are so right to highlight that fear, Jane. A fall is often the tipping point in geriatric medicine. I think of Mrs. Elena Ramirez, a 68-year-old woman from San Antonio, Texas, who I spoke with recently. Elena was the picture of health in her own mind, active in her church, and always careful about what she ate. But she had suffered 2 minor falls within just 6 months. Luckily, she didn't break anything, but she was terrified. When we looked at her diet, she had completely replaced all dairy with a high-end, unfortified oat milk she bought at a local boutique grocer because she thought it was cleaner. She was avoiding all the processed fortified brands. The result? Her vitamin D and calcium levels were bottoming out. Without those nutrients, her muscle fibers weren't firing as efficiently, and her bone density was silently thinning. Her clumsiness wasn't just age, it was a biological deficiency. Her body was losing its internal scaffolding.
It is heartbreaking to think of Elena trying to do the right thing by choosing the purest option, only to have it leave her vulnerable. It sounds like there is a real danger in the unprocessed movement for seniors if it means skipping those added vitamins. What are the signs that someone like Elena or any of our listeners should look out for? Are there early warnings that our healthy diet is actually making us fragile before that first devastating fall happens? How can we tell if our legs are losing the strength they need to keep us upright?
The signs are often subtle until they aren't, Jane. It starts with a feeling of being slightly less sure-footed, especially when walking on uneven ground or dim lighting. You might notice a dull, persistent ache in your lower back or hips that you dismiss as just a long day. Another major red flag is muscle weakness, feeling like it takes just a little more effort to push yourself up from a deep chair or feeling your legs tire out more quickly on a flight of stairs. For Elena, she noticed she was becoming afraid to step off the curb quickly. That fear is actually the brain sensing that the physical foundation isn't solid. I told her that bone health isn't a luxury. It is a necessity for her freedom. We got her back on a regimen that included fortified options and specific calcium-rich foods. Testing your bone density isn't about looking for bad news. It's about finding out if you need to change your strategy so you can keep walking, keep gardening, and keep living life on your own terms.
There is something so nostalgic about a glass of chocolate or vanilla-flavored milk. For many of us, it evokes memories of childhood, a little treat at the end of a long day. Even now, many seniors reach for those flavored cow's milk cartons or those lactose-free vanilla shakes as a way to get their calcium while enjoying a bit of sweetness, often believing it is a harmless comfort that helps them sleep better. But I worry that we are overlooking the heavy price tag that comes with that industrial sweetness. Is that evening comfort actually doing more harm to our joints and our waistlines than we realize, especially for those of us trying to manage blood pressure and inflammation?
That nostalgia is exactly what the food industry counts on, Jane. But the biological reality for a 70-year-old is far from comforting. These flavored milks, even the lactose-free versions, are often loaded with as much sugar as a can of soda. I think of Mr. David Jensen, a 70-year-old living in Tampa, Florida. David had a habit of drinking a glass of lactose-free strawberry milk every night before bed. He thought because it was lactose-free and had milk in the name, it was a healthy way to wind down. Instead, he was seeing a steady increase in his belly fat, what we call visceral fat, which is the most dangerous kind because it surrounds the internal organs and pumps out inflammatory signals. His blood pressure was creeping up, and his knee pain was becoming so severe he could barely enjoy his daily walks on the beach. He didn't realize that the high fructose corn syrup and artificial flavorings in that milk were fueling a cycle of inflammation throughout his entire body.
It is shocking to think that a glass of milk could have as much sugar as a soda. It feels like a wolf in sheep's clothing. For someone like David, that evening ritual was supposed to be a reward, not a source of pain. When we talk about these flavored options, is it just the sugar we have to worry about, or are there other hidden ingredients that are causing this spike in blood pressure and joint distress? It seems like we are paying a very high price for a little bit of strawberry or vanilla flavoring.
It is a combination of factors, Jane. Beyond the massive hit of sugar, these products often contain artificial colorings and stabilizers that can disrupt the delicate microbiome in our gut. We are learning more every day about the gut-joint axis, how an unhealthy gut can lead to increased inflammation in the joints. For David, that nightly sugar spike was also causing his insulin levels to remain high through the night, which prevents the body from burning fat and instead stores it right in the midsection. This belly fat then produces cytokines, which are proteins that directly attack the cartilage in the joints. I told David that his comfort milk was essentially an inflammation cocktail. Once he cut out the flavored milks and switched to a simple, plain version, the swelling in his knees began to subside and his blood pressure became much easier to manage. It is a powerful reminder that sweetness at this stage of life often comes with a very expensive invoice for our health.
It is so easy to fall into the habit of blaming everything on our birth certificate. When we wake up with stiff fingers or feel that overwhelming urge to nap at 2 p.m., we just shrug and say, well, I'm not 70 anymore. But what if these aren't just inevitable signs of aging? What if they are actually the body's way of screaming for a change in our diet? I want to help our listeners become their own health detectives. Sanjay, how can we tell if that glass of milk we had for breakfast is the secret architect of our morning aches or our afternoon fatigue? Is there a way to connect the dots between what is in our glass and how we feel throughout the day?
You have to listen to the whispers of your body before they become shouts, Jane. One of the most common signs that your milk choice is working against you is digestive distress, not just the obvious stuff, but persistent bloating or a heavy acidic feeling after a meal. But even more telling are the systemic signs. If you find your joints feel noticeably more locked or painful about an hour or two after consuming sweetened milk, that is a direct inflammatory response. Another huge red flag is brain fog, or that sudden energy crash in the middle of the day. Remember Mr. Robert Thompson from Columbus? Once he stopped that sweetened almond milk, he told me it was like a veil had been lifted from his mind. He hadn't realized how much that sugar-induced fog was affecting his memory and his mood. He just thought he was getting slower with age.
It is empowering to think that we have that much control, but it also requires a lot of honesty with ourselves. Many of us are so attached to our routines that we don't want to see the connection. For those who are listening and nodding their heads right now, what is the first thing they should do? Is there a simple test we can run on ourselves to see if our milk is the culprit? It seems like we spend so much time looking for complex medical answers when the solution might be sitting right there in the refrigerator door.
The simplest test is the elimination and observation method. I often suggest my patients switch to a completely unsweetened, plain version of their milk for just 7 days. Pay close attention to your morning stiffness scale. Is it a 7 or is it a 3? Monitor your blood sugar if you have a monitor, and notice your energy levels at 3 p.m. Most importantly, read the labels with a critical eye. Many seniors think they are buying healthy milk, but they are choosing the ones with added protein that also come with added sweeteners or artificial thickeners. We have to stop assuming that milk is a monolithic, safe category. It is a processed food like any other, and as we age, we have to be much more selective. If you can change what you pour, you can often change how you move and how you think.
We have been talking a lot about what to avoid, and I can almost hear our listeners at the grocery store right now squinting at those tiny labels. It is overwhelming. We know sweetened is a red flag, but even when we find a carton that says unsweetened, there is still this nagging doubt. Is no sugar really enough to protect us? I want to get very specific here because our independence depends on getting this right. Sanjay, what are the absolute must-have words we should be looking for? If unsweetened is the first step, what is the second step that ensures we are actually building our health rather than just avoiding harm?
You are right to push for clarity, Jane, because unsweetened is only half the battle. For anyone over 60, the second word you must look for is fortified. Think of it as the protection clause for your body. When a milk is fortified, it means it has been intentionally enriched with the very micronutrients that our aging bodies struggle to absorb or maintain. Calcium, vitamin D, and often vitamin B12 and magnesium. Vitamin D is especially critical. It is not just for bones anymore. We now know it plays a massive role in muscle function, which prevents falls and in supporting the immune system. Without fortification, many plant-based milks are just flavored water. And then there is the brain. For instance, almond milk naturally contains vitamin E, a powerful antioxidant. There is ongoing research suggesting that adequate vitamin E intake may be linked to a slower rate of cognitive decline in older adults. But you only get those benefits if the product is high quality and not stripped of its nutrients during processing.
Unsweetened and fortified. It sounds so simple, yet I know how easy it is to get distracted by the big letters on the front of the box. It is interesting that you mentioned the brain and vitamin E. We often think of milk only from the neck down for our bones and our joints. But you are saying that the right choice can actually protect our cognitive sharpness as well. Is it fair to say that by choosing a fortified milk, we are essentially taking a daily liquid supplement that supports both our physical structure and our mental clarity?
That is exactly the right way to view it, Jane. It is functional food. For a senior, every calorie needs to work for you. If you are drinking 100 calories of unfortified oat milk, you are wasting an opportunity. But if those 100 calories come with 30% of your daily calcium and a boost of vitamin D and E, you are actively investing in your future independence. We also need to think about magnesium, which is often added to fortified milks. Magnesium is essential for over 300 biochemical reactions in the body, including regulating heart rhythm and maintaining nerve function. So, when you stand in that aisle, don't just look for what is missing, like sugar, look for what is added. Ensure you are getting those building blocks that keep the skeleton strong and the mind clear. It is about passing 2 gates of safety. Gate 1 is no sugar, and Gate 2 is fortified. If a carton doesn't pass both, it shouldn't be in your cart.
We have spent a lot of time on the warnings, and I can feel the anticipation from our audience. They want to know what the good stuff is. We want to walk into our kitchens tomorrow morning and feel like we are making a choice that truly nourishes us. You have mentioned a word that might be new to some of our listeners, kefir. It sounds a bit exotic, and I know some people are hesitant because they think any fermented milk might be hard on their stomach or taste too tart. But you seem to see it as a potential superhero for the over 60 crowd. Why is this fermented drink so different, and how can it help those of us who feel like our digestion and our bones are becoming more fragile every year?
Kefir is truly one of the most underrated tools in the longevity toolkit, Jane. Think of it as the sophisticated, more powerful cousin of yogurt. It is a fermented milk drink that is teeming with a diverse array of probiotics, those friendly bacteria that live in our gut. For someone over 60, the gut environment often becomes less diverse and less efficient, which can lead to bloating and poor nutrient absorption. Kefir helps reseed the gut. When the gut is healthy, everything else follows. In fact, there is fascinating research into the gut-bone axis, showing that certain probiotics in kefir may help improve bone turnover markers and overall bone mineral density. I often think of Mrs. Patricia Howard, a 74-year-old from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Patricia had suffered a hip fracture a year ago and was terrified of another one. She also struggled with constant indigestion. I suggested she start with just a small half-cup serving of plain, unsweetened kefir every day.
A hip fracture is such a life-altering event for someone like Patricia. It really brings the need for bone building into sharp focus. I am curious about her experience with the kefir, though. Many seniors avoid dairy because they say it makes them feel bloated or heavy. Did Patricia find that this fermented version was easier to handle? And did she actually notice a difference in how she felt, not just in her stomach, but in her overall confidence to move around after such a serious injury? It seems almost too simple that a little glass of fermented milk could make such a difference.
It sounds simple, but the biology is profound. Because kefir is fermented, the bacteria actually pre-digest much of the lactose, making it much easier on the stomach than regular milk. Patricia found that instead of the usual bloating she got from cow's milk, the kefir actually seemed to calm her digestion. Within a few weeks, she felt less heavy and more energized. But the real breakthrough was her confidence. As her digestion improved and she felt more nourished, she began to engage more fully in her physical therapy. She told me she felt lighter on her feet. This is the gut-brain connection in action. When your internal ecosystem is balanced, your mood and your sense of stability often improve. For Patricia, kefir wasn't just a drink, it was a way to regain her trust in her own body. I always tell people to start slow, choose the plain version to avoid the sugar trap we talked about, and let your gut adapt. It is one of the best things you can do to ensure that the nutrients you eat are actually getting to your bones and your brain.
It is so good to have these tangible solutions. We have talked about kefir, but I know that variety is the spice of life, and sometimes people just want a different flavor profile or something that works better in their morning tea or cereal. I have heard you mention goat milk as an interesting alternative, and of course we need to circle back to the right way to do almond milk. For the person who is standing in the dairy aisle tomorrow, looking for that perfect balance of something that won't upset their stomach, but will still provide that solid foundation for their skeleton, how do these two options fit into the puzzle? Are they just second best to kefir, or do they offer their own unique protections for someone in their 70s?
They are excellent teammates in a healthy diet, Jane. Goat milk is a fantastic option that many people overlook. Its protein structure is slightly different from cow's milk, and the fat globules are smaller, which often makes it much easier to digest for seniors who find traditional dairy difficult. It is naturally high in calcium and vitamin A. Then we have the right kind of almond milk, the unsweetened, fortified version. As we discussed, for an older person, keeping blood sugar stable is paramount for avoiding inflammation and protecting the brain. Unsweetened almond milk is very low on the glycemic index, meaning it won't cause those dangerous spikes. When it is fortified with calcium and vitamin D, it becomes a very safe, reliable vehicle for bone health. And let's not forget the brain connection. Again, the vitamin E in almonds is a key antioxidant that helps protect our neurons from oxidative stress as we age. It isn't a miracle cure, but it is a consistent daily layer of protection.
It feels like we are building a menu of options rather than a rigid diet, which is so much more sustainable.
I like the idea that we can choose goat milk for its digestibility or almond milk for its blood sugar stability, as long as we keep those two gates of unsweetened and fortified in mind. When you talk to your patients about these choices, do you find that they struggle to make the switch? It can be hard to change the brand you have used for 20 years. How do you encourage them to see this not as a sacrifice of flavor, but as a proactive step towards staying out of a wheelchair and keeping their memory sharp?
I tell them to focus on the why, Jane. I ask them, what do you want to be doing 5 or 10 years from now? Well, if the answer is, I want to be traveling with my grandkids or I want to keep living in my own home, then that choice in the grocery aisle becomes very easy. It's not about giving up your favorite milk. It's about choosing a partner that supports your goals. I tell them to think of their body like a classic car. You wouldn't put cheap, low-grade fuel in a 1965 Mustang and expect it to run perfectly. You provide the best possible fuel to keep it on the road. Once they try the unsweetened versions for a week and realize their joints don't ache as much or their brain fog clears up, the sacrifice vanishes. They realize that the reward isn't the sugar, it's the feeling of being strong, clear-headed, and independent. That is the ultimate flavor of success at this stage of life.
Sanjay, we have covered so much ground today, from the hidden sugars in our healthy almond milk to the bone-thinning risks of unfortified trends, and finally to the hopeful promise of kefir and goat milk. But as we draw this conversation to a close, I want to talk about the heart of the matter. For our listeners who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, the greatest fear isn't a lab result or a number on a scale. It is the loss of independence. It is the fear of that one fall that changes everything, or that slow fading of memory that leaves us feeling like a stranger in our own lives. When we look at that glass of milk on the table tomorrow morning, what is the one thing you want us to remember about how such a small choice connects to the big picture of our freedom?
You have touched on the very soul of why I do this work, Jane. In the hospital, I see the end results of these choices every day. The broken hips, the cognitive decline, the exhaustion. And what I want everyone listening to understand is that your independence is built one choice at a time. A glass of milk isn't just a drink, it is a decision about your future. Every time you choose unsweetened and fortified, you are cast a vote for your ability to walk your daughter down the aisle, to drive yourself to the theater, or to simply remember the names of the people you love. We've talked about the 3 types to move away from: the sweetened nut milks that spike your sugar, the unfortified oat milks that leave your bones hollow, and the flavored milks that fuel the fires of inflammation. And we have replaced them with 3 powerful allies: plain kefir for your gut and bones, goat milk for easy digestion, and fortified unsweetened almond milk for a steady mind and body. If you could do just one thing tomorrow, I would ask you to become a fierce advocate for your own health. Turn that carton around, read the label. If it's not serving your independence, it doesn't belong in your body. It has been an honor to share this space with you, Jane, and to speak directly to your wonderful audience. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sanjay. Your insight has been a true gift to all of us today. It is a powerful reminder that we are not helpless in the face of aging. We have the tools to protect the life we have worked so hard to build. To everyone listening at home, tonight, when you head to the kitchen, I want you to open that refrigerator and ask yourself a simple, honest question. Is what's in this glass helping me stay strong, or is it taking a little bit of my future away? Your independence is worth the effort of a new habit. We hope this conversation helps you stand a little taller and feel a little sharper tomorrow morning. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe to Healthy Kidneys After 60 so you never miss our deep dives into the health topics that matter most to your freedom and your family. We have so much more to share with you in the coming weeks. Until next time, I'm Jane Pauley. Stay well, stay informed, and most importantly, stay independent.